an attempt to prevent the American people from knowing the facts about how we could have prevented 9/11, and people are covering it up today.
Do you agree there is a government cover-up of 9/11? More than 53,000 of you voted in our online poll. You're looking at the results right there. 83% of you agreed and said yes. 17% of you said no.
The plane does not fit in that hole. So what did hit the Pentagon?
Pentagon. The day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America.
Tonight, a new account of the government's response to September 11th points to a picture of ineptitude, confusion, and perhaps deception. A top Democrat and Republican suggest Americans still don't know the full truth about that day. We'll have that special report. Also tonight, 2 Texas Border Patrol agents are facing 20 years in prison, but the drug smuggler they pursued given immunity by federal prosecutors. What in the world is going on in this country? We'll have that special report for you tonight. We'll have the answer. Tonight, we're 1 month away from the 5th anniversary of September 11th. A shocking new book by the 9/11 Commission co-chairman, Thomas Kean and Lee Hamilton, says Americans still don't know the whole truth about their government's initial response to those terrorist attacks that day. Christine Romans has the report.
2 hours of chaos and confusion on September 11th, and months of government ineptitude and incorrect testimony. A new book by 9/11 Commission co-chairman Tom Kean and Lee Hamilton outlines repeated misstatements by the Pentagon and Federal Aviation Administration. They write, fog of war could explain why some people were confused on the day of 9/11. But it could not explain why all of the after-action reports, accident investigations, and public testimony by FAA and NORAD officials advanced an account of 9/11 that was untrue. Untrue, the military's original timeline of United Flight 93. The military said FAA notified NORAD of a hijacked plane at 9:16 a.m., 47 minutes before the plane crashed in Pennsylvania. In fact, the military found out 3 minutes after the plane crashed. And equally untrue, the government's timeline for American Flight 77 and details about fighter jets scrambled to intercept it. The book also alleges government officials weren't forthcoming with the investigation, and it took interviews and subpoenas to shake loose valuable information. A Pentagon audit declassified last year found DOD did not accurately report to the 9/11 Commission on the response to the September 11, 2001 hijackings. Pentagon investigators blamed, quote, insufficient forensic capabilities, and worse, admits, quote, DOD might not be able to sufficiently capture and report on actions taken in response to a future significant air event. Still, so far, government investigators stop short of calling all these inaccuracies lies. Investigations are underway by the Inspectors General of the Pentagon and the Department of Transportation to find out just why the FAA and NORAD didn't tell the truth. Now, Kane and Hamilton say all the inaccuracies have fueled conspiracy theorists, they've stymied the investigation, and, Lou, damaged the credibility of this government.
Well, this government doesn't deserve much credibility, does it? In point of fact, if all of the after-action reports are untrue, for whatever reason, that's a lie, because they are asserted as the truth by people who knew better or should have.
And really troubling, the Department of Defense own Inspector General report that was declassified showed that if the same thing happened again, you'd have the same chaos and the same misreporting or lies afterward.
Incompetence and ineptitude on the part of this government on September 11th and in the weeks and months leading up to it are established. The fact that the government would permit deception after a deception, whether honestly, if you can call it that, honestly intended or not. But the fact that they would continue and perpetuate the lie suggests that we need a full investigation of what is going on and what is demonstrably an incompetent and at worst deceitful federal government. Christine Romans, thank you very much.
We need the American people to get the truth. We have a right to know who did it, and so do the families of the victims.
You know what? Howard Dean recently seemed to muse aloud whether you had advanced knowledge of 9/11. Do you agree or disagree with the RNC that this kind of rhetoric borders on political hate speech?
Yeah. Look, there's time for politics. And, you know, it's time for politics, and, it's an absurd insinuation.
What do you think? Do you think it's convincing what they tell in the film?
It's not so much what they say. It's the things that, you know, make you look at what you thought you saw in a different light. And those things for me that bother me is the hole in the Pentagon being too small for a plane. The lawn isn't mussed up, and the government's not showing the plane hitting when many cameras photographed it. At the World Trade Center, 3 buildings came down like demolition, and 2 of them were hit by a plane, but the 3rd one, they said, do you want us to pull it? And they pulled it, and it looked just like the other 2. Those things bother me. In Pennsylvania, the plane that went down, it was just a hole in the ground. There wasn't any wreckage. There wasn't any skid marks. There wasn't any tear in the earth. And no one's ever really found out about that. So every place, there's questions coming from this documentary. And you don't have to believe everything in the documentary to still have questions come up. And you look back and you remember what you saw and what you were told, and now you have questions.
And the event itself, did it change your life, or did it change your view of...
Now it's just an event that has many questions and no answers.
And the suggestion that the American government is behind it?
What does it mean? Too big for people to think about. It's too big.
What do you mean?
It's just, you know, it's like something no one wants to think about.